Before we begin our story, we kindly ask you to share your thoughts on the voiceover in the comments below. Due to personal shyness and a specific accent, the creator of this channel prefers not to record their own voice and uses artificial intelligence instead. Please let us know what you think of the voice quality in the comments. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council fell silent so suddenly, as if someone had muted the entire universe. All eyes turned to Ambassador Kryn, who stepped forward. His body was encased in gleaming steel armor. It clicked softly and shifted, almost like it was alive. With each movement, the plates adjusted and whispered. He crossed a massive forearm over his chest and began to speak. His voice was harsh, like stones grinding against each other. "The Kelrat Union is given 30 cycles," he rasped. 30 to surrender and hand over their worlds. After that, we will take them by force. This is not a negotiation. It is a warning, out of courtesy. A dull murmur spread across the hall. Ambassador Tessa of Kelrat rose from her seat. She looked small against the other delegations. Everyone knew the Kelrat, scientists, artists, philosophers, not warriors, never warriors. "We have never posed a threat to the Kryn Dominion," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Her fur stood on end despite her effort. "Why do you demand our worlds?" The Kryn ambassador's mandibles clicked. It might have been laughter or mockery. "Because we can, because you are weak, because your planets are where we need them to be. Is that not reason enough?" Tessa looked around the hall. 40 times, 40 civilizations, anyone. One by one, the ambassadors looked away. Some suddenly became interested in their tablets. Others leaned toward their aides and whispered. No one met her gaze. At last, the speaker of the Galactic Council spoke. "The Council does not interfere in territorial disputes between member states. If the Kryn wish to expand, and the Kelrat cannot defend themselves, then that is the way of the galaxy. Stability comes first." "They will kill millions." Tessa's voice trembled. "Then perhaps you should surrender," the speaker replied coldly. In that moment, Tessa understood. The galaxy had already written them off. Then someone stood up, slowly, calmly, the ambassador of Earth. Chen was not tall by human standards. She had short gray hair and a quiet presence. Until now, she had remained silent throughout the entire session. But now, the hall became truly still. "And what will humanity do?" the Kryn ambassador sneered. "The youngest race in the Galactic Council has decided to play heroes." Chen smiled. Her eyes did not. "No threats," she said. "Just a question. How many worlds are under the control of the Kryn Dominion?" "More than 200, he answered with pride. "Impressive," Chen nodded. "And how many of them did you take by force?" "Almost all of them. We take what we want. That is our way." "I see," she said quietly. "Thank you for your honesty." She sat down and said nothing more. To the Kryn, it looked like victory. To everyone else, it felt like the end of the story. They had no idea what they had just awakened. If the galaxy thought this was the most terrifying moment, it was gravely mistaken. After the session, the Galactic Council dispersed quickly, almost in a rush. No one wanted to remain near the Kelrat delegation. The scent of fear lingered in the air, stronger than any pheromone. Tessa stepped out alone onto the balcony of the Galactic Council chamber. Above her stretched a beautiful star-filled sky where the lights of hundreds of worlds shimmered in the distance. She used to love this place. Now it felt like a mockery. Such a vast galaxy and not a single friend. "Ambassador Tessa." She turned. Chen was walking toward her, calm, unguarded, her hands clasped behind her back. "Ambassador Chen," Tessa said wearily. "There's no need to explain anything. I understand. You're new to the council. You can't afford to fall out with the Kryn. Do you remember what it was like 20 years ago, when humanity first joined the council?" Chen asked quietly. Tessa frowned. She remembered, all too well. Back then, everyone tried to take advantage of them. Shady trade deals, dubious treaties, attempts to seize their colonies. They were pressured, tested, pushed to their limits. And it was the Kelrat who stepped in. They explained the rules of the game. They covered for humanity while it learned how to endure. You helped us when we were weak, Chen continued. And you asked for nothing in return. You did it simply because it was right. That was a long time ago, Tessa said, lowering her gaze. And the Kryn have already started bombing your colonies, haven't they? Tessa froze. Her shoulders sagged. 3 worlds, a show of force, more than 1,000,000 dead after the first strikes. Chen's expression changed. It was as if all human warmth had been switched off. Then listen carefully, she said. You are not alone. No, Tessa snapped. You don't understand. The Kryn have the strongest military in the galaxy. You only have 8 defensive fleets. They'll wipe you out. Chen smiled, but this time the smile was cold. Let me tell you something about humans, about what we do when someone comes after our pack. Pack? An old human concept. We survived only because we protected our own. The Kelrat are ours, and someone has already struck them. She activated her communicator. Authorization Alpha Prime 7. Transmit to Earth, Mars, and Luna. Kelrat protection request confirmed. Full mobilization. Cerberus protocol, wake everyone. Activate all assets confirmed. Chen ended the transmission. God help us all. We need to evacuate your people, all of them. Children, the elderly, everyone down to the last one. Our ships will begin extraction in the next cycle. And your army, Tessa whispered. Preparing, Chen replied, looking at the stars. The galaxy has never seen humanity at war, and to be honest, we hoped we would never have to show it. At that same moment, across all human-controlled space, ships began turning back toward home. From the outside, it looked like a retreat. Other species breathed a sigh of relief. Humans were folding, just as expected. But deep beneath Earth's oceans, under the ice of the Arctic and Antarctica, and on the dark side of the moon, lights were coming alive. Doors that had been sealed for half a century began to open. And what lay behind them had never been meant for peace. Because humanity was not retreating, it was waking up. The Kryn were celebrating. By their standards, everything had gone perfectly. The Galactic Council had once again swallowed the threat. The Kelrat were left without protection. And the humans had stepped aside with remarkable grace. Human fleets were returning to their systems, leaving patrol zones, shutting down diplomatic missions. To an outside observer, it all looked simple. The newcomers had lost their nerve. I told you, Admiral Xurax of the Kryn clicked his mandibles, studying the reports. Humans are pleasant, soft, and useless. The Dominion moved quickly. Their fleets did not like delays. Kelrat systems ignited one after another. First the outer colonies, then the industrial worlds. The strikes were demonstrative, brutal, and broadcast in full. Ruined cities, burning orbital stations, panic, fleeing crowds. The Kryn transmitted it all across galactic channels. The message was simple: do not resist. The Council once again expressed deep concern, and once again did nothing. But the humans were not watching the broadcasts. They were working. Ships began to appear in Kelrat space, dozens, then hundreds. But these were not armored warships built for battle. They were cargo starship, medical ships, massive transports, colonial liners, and even military landing shuttles. Evacuation. Tessa stood beside Ambassador Chen at the main spaceport of her homeworld, unable to believe what she was seeing. Humans were everywhere. Most were Star Marines, space infantry, and medics. They carried Kelrat children in their arms, supported the elderly, spoke softly and calmly, as if everything were under control, as if the sky above could not ignite at any moment with a Kryn strike. A young human woman knelt before a crying Kelrat child. It's going to be all right, she said gently. We'll take you somewhere safe. On Earth, we have vast forests. If you want, you can climb trees every day. The child sniffled. And your mom and dad are already on the ship. They're waiting for you. And suddenly, Tessa understood. These people were not pretending. A man in a dark uniform approached her. His face was scarred, his gaze heavy. Colonel Martinez, Earth Defense Forces, we need to coordinate the evacuation schedule. A hologram displayed a map of Kelrat worlds. 12 colonies have already been cleared, 2 million evacuated, but the Kryn are accelerating. You have approximately 20 cycles before they strike the capital. And your battle fleets? Tessa asked. Martinez did not look away. Preparing. For now, our priority is to save the population of your planets. Planets can be retaken later. The dead cannot be brought back. The Kryn did not interfere with the evacuation. They even joked about it. Humans were removing the population themselves. Convenient, let them. Meanwhile, within the Galactic Council, some began to grow nervous. Analyst Vextion, a draconian by origin, studied the data and frowned. Earth's industrial output had surged by hundreds of %. Shipyards were operating without pause. Energy consumption was far beyond normal limits. They're not retreating, he murmured. They're charging up. He opened a classified report from an agent of the Tian Empire, stationed on Mars. Biomodification programs involving volunteers. Enhancements to muscle, bone, and nervous system. He watched the video report once. That was enough. It was clear that during a training exercise on an obstacle course, a human had severely injured his knee. He did not even cry out. It was either a major dislocation or a fracture. Yet he kept moving along the course, continuing the training fight even with a badly impaired leg. The report ended with a single line. They are doing this voluntarily. Vex closed the file and looked out at the stars. The Kryn do not even understand what they have gotten themselves into, and very soon, everyone will. 15 cycles after the council session, the Kelrat system was one of the last inhabited systems of the Kelrat Republic. 15 million living beings, cities, oceans, orbital elevators, homes, or what remained of them. When the Kryn fleet dropped out of hyperspace, space itself seemed to darken. 300 warships, cruisers, battleships, carrier platforms, a force that was usually enough to erase a system in a matter of hours. Admiral Zurax studied the tactical display with satisfaction. Begin the operation, total suppression, no ceremonies. Admiral, the officer hesitated, there is a ship in the system. Kelrat, Zurax smirked. No, sir, human. Zurax narrowed his eyes. One. At the center of the hologram hung a single vessel, a small Dakota-class destroyer, 200 crew, no reinforcements, no support. Have they completely lost their minds? The admiral hissed. Open a channel. The screen came alive. A woman appeared, light skin, dark hair, calm eyes, no rush, no panic, a plain gray uniform. Behind her, a clean, quiet bridge. I am Admiral Zurax, he declared. You are surrounded. The odds are 300 to 1. Leave now and I will allow you to live. The woman tilted her head slightly. Captain Sarah Connor, United Earth ship Indomitable. This planet is under the protection of humanity. You should leave. Laughter broke out across the Kryn bridge. Are you serious? One ship against a fleet. I am serious, she repeated calmly. Last chance, human. Jump and you live. No. The channel cut. Fire, Zurax ordered. Show the galaxy what happens to human arrogance. Space erupted. Streams of energy, missiles, plasma. The shields of the Indomitable flared, trembled, but held. Then came the reply, precise, focused fire. 2 Kryn cruisers shattered into debris. A third lost propulsion. Impossible, someone breathed. But neither skill nor technology can defeat mathematics. The destroyer's shields collapsed. The hull was cracking. Decompression on 3 decks. Captain, we cannot withstand this level of fire for long, the executive officer said quietly. I know. Sarah stood. Attention, all crew, abandon starship. Repeat, abandon starship. Escape pods launch in 30 seconds. Captain, that is an order. When the pods were away, she stepped to the comms. Transmit on all frequencies. Maximum power. She took a breath. Threat confirmed. Rules of engagement lifted. All fleets, full weapons authorization. Authorization code. Captain Sarah Connor, Destroyer Indomitable. A pause. Transmit that we took the first strike and returned fire, but the Indomitable could not withstand the attack. I have ordered the crew to abandon Starship. I am taking the burning Indomitable on a ramming course. She cut the transmission. Admiral Xurax watched as the human starship burned and broke apart. The end, he said, but the Indomitable did not explode. Its engines flared. The starship turned and drove straight toward the Kryn flagship. It's a ramming run, someone shouted on the bridge. Too late. The burning destroyer slammed into the command section of the flagship at near light speed. The flash lit up the entire system. The flagship was gone. The explosion had not yet faded when, within minutes, hyperspace ruptures began to open across the system. Because one ship had done exactly what it had been sent to do, it had forced the war to truly begin. First one jump, then a second, a third, then dozens. Human fleets entered the system in perfect synchrony as if they had rehearsed it for years. Maybe they had. 3 strike groups. 15 carrier platforms. 45 cruisers. 150 support starship. They did not maneuver chaotically. They did not scramble in panic. They moved into position while simultaneously recovering the escape pods from the Indomitable. The Kryn commander, now in charge after Xurax's death, understood everything at once. "Transmit a surrender signal," he said hoarsely. "Immediately." The reply came almost at once. "Denied. You opened fire on our starship. Now you answer for it." What followed could not be called a battle. Human fighters launched from the platforms and surged forward like a swarm of enraged insects. They moved strangely. Sharp vector changes, unpredictable attack patterns. Kryn point defense shot some of them down. It did not stop the assault. Pilots ejected seconds before impact. Pilotless fighters kept flying, ramming, colliding, detonating. Earth's cruisers fought like wolf packs. They did not finish their targets. They crippled them. Engines disabled. Propulsion gone. Weapons silenced, gun decks stripped clean. Kryn starships remained intact and completely helpless. Then came the boarding parties. That was when the Kryn understood they had never truly seen humans before. Human star marines were tall and broad like the Kryn, but they moved faster than normal biology should allow. Dark blue armor made them look like walking machines. They did not shout. They did not roar. They did not celebrate. They simply worked. On the cruiser Retribution, Commander Trax gathered 50 warriors, his best. Elite. Against them 8 humans. The fight lasted 4 minutes. Trax survived by accident. He was struck down at the very beginning and lay still beneath the bodies of his soldiers, pretending to be dead. He heard the shots. Short, precise. He heard bodies fall, and he heard one of the humans quietly whistling. When it was over and they found him, Trax asked the question that had been haunting him. "What are you?" The human trooper looked at him with cold eyes. "We are what humans become when you touch our friends." The war ignited across 12 systems at once. Human strikes hit supply depots, communication hubs, and shipyards with such precision that it seemed the coordinates had been set long before the first shot. Because they had. The Kryn tried to counterattack. They sent their best fleets, their best admirals, but humans fought differently. Damaged starships did not retreat. They fought to the last impulse and then they rammed. Kryn commanders learned a new nightmare very quickly. A human starship is most dangerous when it is already dying. New weapons appeared as well. Kinetic strikes from orbit turned bases into craters. Biological agents disabled entire garrisons in seconds. Nanoswarms burned out technological systems without harming living beings. When the Galactic Council expressed outrage, Chen answered briefly. "We never signed your rules. You wrote them before we arrived. The Kryn started this war by bombing civilians. We are simply finishing it." The galaxy watched and no longer recognized those same pleasant newcomers. And the longer the war continued, the clearer one truth became. Humanity would not merely win. It would rewrite the rules forever. By the third month of the war, the Kryn were no longer advancing. They were retreating. 15 key worlds of the Dominion were under siege. Supply lines shattered. Shipyards destroyed. Communications failing in bursts. For the first time in its history, the empire that had ruled through force found itself on the defensive. Emperor Zurak the Conqueror watched it all from the throne hall of his homeworld. 2,000 warships, orbital platforms, planetary cannons, the final shield. "Let them come," he said. "Here we will break them." The human fleet arrived, but not as expected. They did not attack head-on. They did not engage the orbital defenses directly. Instead, they remained beyond effective range and began striking the planet itself. Metal rods the size of skyscrapers fell from orbit. No explosives, only mass and velocity. They struck the surface with the force of nuclear detonations. The planet trembled. Oceans rose like walls. Cities cracked apart like glass. "They are not invading us," a Kryn admiral whispered. "They are breaking us." When the Kryn fleet surged forward to intercept the human armada, humanity revealed weapons the galaxy had never seen before. Missiles appearing inside enemy ships. Beams slicing through armor as though it did not exist. The battle lasted 8 hours. When it was over, 58% of the human fleet had been destroyed or damaged. Every ship was scarred. Many were barely operational. But the Kryn fleet was gone. 2,000 ships. 0 combat-capable starship remaining. Emperor Zurak broadcast from his bunker. "We surrender." Admiral Jiang, commander of the human fleet, listened to the transmission while sitting inside a shattered command center. Blood had dried across her face. Her uniform was torn. "He wants to capitulate," the communications officer said. Jiang remained silent. She remembered the indomitable, the Marines who never returned from boarding operations. The Kelret children evacuated at the last possible moment. "Accept it," she said at last. "But on our terms, and let the entire galaxy hear them." The terms were harsh. The Kryn Dominion would be dissolved. Military worlds would remain under council control for 50 years. Conquered worlds would regain their independence. Military leaders would stand trial for war crimes. Kryn technology would be shared with all council members. For 100 years, 1/4 of the Dominion's economy, including the provinces and worlds granted independence, would be directed toward rebuilding Kelrat space and compensating Earth. The Kryn protested. They shouted, demanded concessions. Jiang's answer was brief. "Justice would be doing to you what you did to the Kelrat, bombing your cities, killing your children." A pause. "Be grateful that we are human, and that we stopped." The Dominion accepted the terms. There was no choice. The war was over. But the galaxy would never be the same again, because everyone had learned a simple truth. Humans do not only know how to start wars, they know when to end them. The war was over, but the silence that followed was louder than any battle. Ambassador Chen stood in her office aboard the council station, staring at the numbers. Losses, dry lines, cold reports. 800,000 dead, 1,200,000 wounded, permanently, nearly half the fleet destroyed, the price of a promise. A knock sounded at the door. "Enter." Tessa stepped inside slowly, carrying a small box in her hands. She looked older, not outwardly, inside. War ages people that way. "My people are returning home," she said. "Human ships are helping rebuild our cities. You saved us." Chen did not answer immediately. "We paid dearly," she said quietly, "far too dearly." "That is why I am here," Tessa replied, placing the box on the table. "This is all we can offer." Inside lay an order of honor. It was heavy, a beautifully crafted star, each ray forged from rare Kelrat metals and alloys whose methods of creation were known only to Kelrat master artisans. "The Kelrat Council voted unanimously," Tessa said. "Every human who fought in this war will receive the Star of Kelrat. It is our highest honor." She paused. "We have prepared 800,000 medals for the dead, and another 1,200,000 for the wounded." Chen tightened her grip on the medal. "They did not go to war for awards," she said. "I know," Tessa's voice trembled. "They did it because we were friends." At that moment, Chen's communicator came alive. Priority transmission from Earth. The hologram flickered on, revealing humanity's leaders, tired, aged more in 3 months than in years. "The war is over," Chen said. The Kryn accepted all terms. "And the council?" one of them asked. "They are afraid," she answered honestly. "Everyone is afraid, and everyone is suddenly trying very hard to become our friend." "That is a problem," another replied. "We defended our friends, and now the entire galaxy fears us." "Strength always inspires fear," Chen said. "But we can be strong and still remain human." After the transmission, she sat in silence for a long time. Later, Colonel Harrison led her to the medical ward. Wounded humans lay there. Among them were Kelret medics, volunteers, and children. A Kelret child carefully placed a drawing beside the bed of a Star Marine who had lost both legs. In the drawing, beneath a bright sun, 2 figures were holding hands. "He saved their family," Harrison said quietly. "They come every day now." Chen felt tears rising in her throat. "This is why we fought," she whispered. "Because war is not about hatred. It is about what you are willing to lose so that others may live." And this is exactly what the galaxy was only beginning to understand. An emergency session of the Galactic Council convened faster than at any point in its 10,000-year history. The chamber was full, unusually quiet. When Ambassador Chen entered, conversations died down on their own. She was no longer ignored. Now she was watched the way one watches a predator that has proven it knows how to bite. The council speaker began first. "The recent conflict has demonstrated a level of human military capability that raises serious concern." Many delegations nodded too quickly, too unanimously. "Some of the weapons deployed by Earth," he continued, "fall outside the scope of galactic conventions." Chen stood calmly. "We did not sign your conventions," she said. "They were written before we existed, and I will remind you, none of them protected Kelrat when orbital strikes were leveled against their cities." A murmur ran through the chamber. "Many states are requesting that you limit your military capabilities," the speaker said, "to sign new treaties for the safety of the galaxy." Chen looked around at those who had remained silent while the Kelret were dying, at those who now smiled and extended their hands. "No," she said, "we will not limit our ability to defend ourselves and our allies. We will not again accept a situation where the fate of millions is decided by concern." "You are asking us to trust you," one of the ambassadors said cautiously. Chen shook her head. "No, I am saying that trust is a two-way street. We have shown restraint. We have stopped. That is our answer." Several hours later, Council Intelligence delivered a report. It was not intended for public release. 3 species had begun rapid military buildup. 2 more were developing technologies suspiciously similar to human ones. 15 were exchanging classified communications about human capability. "They're afraid of us," Chen said quietly as she read the report. "And fear breeds stupidity," Chancellor Martinez replied. "We won the war," Chen said, "but we may have planted the seeds of the next one." In the distant human systems, the last dreadnoughts were being withdrawn to hidden bases. Biomodified soldiers were returning to civilian life. Some became engineers, others doctors, others diplomats. The scars remained, but they no longer defined the future. The galaxy no longer saw humans as mysterious newcomers. Now they were a force to be reckoned with, consulted, sometimes feared, but more and more often relied upon. And perhaps that was the war's greatest achievement. Humanity had not proven that it could destroy, but that it could choose. And ahead of them remained the final question: what would they choose next time? On a distant prison world, the former Emperor Zarak sat in his cell awaiting trial. When the guard brought him food, he asked the question that had haunted him since the surrender. "Why didn't you destroy us?" he asked. You had the power." The guard, a gray-haired veteran, looked at him calmly. "Because we are not you. We fight when we must. But we do not erase worlds. If we became like you, then what would there be left worth fighting for?" Zarak stared at the wall long after the guard had left. The memorial wall in Geneva grew slowly. Black stone, cold to the touch, accepted new names of the fallen one after another. 5,000 workers labored in silence, no speeches, no music. None was needed. Ambassador Chen stood before the wall, feeling a strange emptiness. There was victory, there was peace, but no joy. That same evening, the council convened again, formally to discuss stability, but in truth to understand what humanity had become. "You are now the strongest player in the galaxy," the speaker said. "That is a fact, but power without control is frightening." Chen rose to her feet. "Control is not chains. Control is responsibility. We have already shown we know how to stop. And if next time you do not stop..." Chen looked directly at him. "Then it will mean someone again decided they could destroy peaceful worlds without consequence. And if that is the case, the problem will not be us. Besides, I don't recall you speaking so strongly when the Kryn attacked the Kelrat. Do you have double standards now?" The chamber fell silent. After the session, Chen sat alone for a long time. She thought about the people who would never see the sky again, about soldiers who had returned, but not truly returned, about a galaxy that now looked at Earth with both hope and fear. Power had shifted the balance. Memory had changed Chen herself. And somewhere deep inside, she understood the hardest truth was still ahead, because keeping peace is sometimes harder than winning a war. 20 years passed. The galaxy grew accustomed to the new order. Not quickly, not smoothly, but it adapted. Where force had once decided everything, now civilizations first asked themselves whether humanity might intervene. 6 months after the war, the word humanity began to sound different. Once spoken with faint condescension, now it came in lowered voices, with pauses, with caution. When Chen entered council halls, the seats around the human delegation were no longer empty. On the contrary, they were sought after. Trade agreements, military pacts, technological exchange. Everyone wanted proximity, everyone wanted protection. It was then that the new treaty emerged, short, almost unsettlingly simple. Any attack on a signatory would be considered an attack on all, unified defense, shared responsibility, one pack. On the first day, 30 species signed. "They want our protection," one of Chen's advisors said, "or they fear being without it." "It is almost the same thing," Chen replied. Not all agreed. The Tiamat Empire, old, proud, warlike, refused. Their ambassador spoke loudly and defiantly. "We do not need human guardianship. We are strong enough to defend ourselves." Chen only nodded. "That is your choice. We do not force anyone." The ambassador narrowed his eyes. "Is that a threat?" "No," Chen said calmly. "It is reality. We lost nearly 1 million people defending those who became our friends. We will not do it for those who prefer to stand aside." The chamber froze. 2 weeks later, the Tiamat Empire signed the treaty, like all the other major powers. No one wanted to remain outside the circle. The council passed a new law. For the first time in history, specific species were named directly. Any aggression against Earth, the Kelrat, or those under their protection would be considered an act of war. Earth and Kelrat became untouchable. Ambassador Chen retired quietly, without ceremony, without fanfare. 50 years of service had left their mark. She was succeeded by David Park. Once a star infantry officer, he had survived boarding actions, lost friends, endured modifications he later had to learn how to live with. Now he stood in her old office, staring at the stars beyond the transparent panel. "I'm afraid," he said honestly. "I know what we're capable of, and I fear that one day I'll make the wrong choice." Chen smiled, tired but warm. "If you're afraid, you're right for this job. The dangerous ones are not those who fear power, but those who enjoy it." She stepped toward the window. "I learned one thing in all these years. The galaxy respects strength, but remembers kindness. They fear our weapons, but trust our words. And if one day we must fight again..." Chen did not answer immediately. "Then fight in a way that lets you look children in the eyes afterward. That is the only compass that never lies." A few years later, the galaxy grew quieter. Not more peaceful, quieter. Fewer ultimatums. Fewer "we can take it by force." Fewer imperial ambitions. Too many remembered how it ended. In the Galactic Council chamber, another session was underway. Ordinary, routine, almost dull by historical standards. A small outer species requested protection. Their neighbors were pressuring them, not bombing yet, but threatening, probing boundaries. The speaker began automatically. The council expresses concern. He stopped. No one reacted anymore. All eyes turned to the human delegation. David Park sat calmly, hands on the armrests, gaze steady. Old memories beneath the surface unchanged. He stood. "We will not start a war," he said, "but we will send ships, non-combat, medical and observation vessels." "And if the pressure continues?" someone asked. David paused. "Then we will respond much more decisively." It was enough. The incident ended without a single shot fired. The aggressors withdrew not because they were struck, but because they knew what would happen if they didn't stop. Human history was now told differently, not as a path of conquest, nor as a legend of ultimate weapons, but as the story of a species that once became strong enough to be monsters, and wise enough not to become them. The galaxy still feared humans, but now it did not fear their strength. It feared their choice, because strength is predictable, but principles are not. And somewhere among the stars, new civilizations were already asking the same question. Who is more dangerous? The one who wants to rule, or the one who can rule but chooses not to? It is from that question that the next story will begin.